Everything you own sits about a foot away from your face. Your blouse is at your collarbone. Your necklace is on your chest. Your glasses are the closest thing you wear. And even those sit across the middle of your face, well away from the parts you actually think about. There are two exceptions, and they are both hanging within an inch of your jawline right now. An earring is the closest object you own to the place you are most conscious of. Not near it, beside it. It sits directly alongside the jaw and the lower cheek, the exact area that softens first. The area you check in a car mirror. The area that made you turn your head slightly in the last photograph anybody took of you. And almost nobody thinks about them at all. Most women over 60 are wearing earrings they were given, a gift from a husband, something from a daughter, a pair from a 40th birthday, a set that came in a box, and the ones they bought themselves, they bought at least 15 years ago, for a face that has since changed. So you have the most powerfully positioned object in your entire wardrobe, sitting in the highest leverage spot on your whole body, and it was chosen by somebody else for a different face during a different decade. Now here is why the position matters so much, and this is the part nobody explains. An earring does two things beside your jaw. It draws a line, and it throws light. If that line runs in the same direction as the jaw is softening, it reinforces it, and the whole lower face drops. If it runs across or upward, it fights it. And light bounced upward from a bright object under the cheekbone reaches the one part of a face that daylight never touches, the underside, where the shadows live. Same face, same day. Two pairs of earrings, 10 years apart in how it reads. So I am going to give you 5 pairs that are working against you, and 3 that flatter almost every face over 60. And then the jaw rule, which decides length, costs nothing, and takes 4 seconds to check in a mirror. Number 4 is the one I most want you to reach, and it is the one nobody talks about, because it is not really about style at all. It is about what has happened to your earlobes, which is something that happens to every woman and which no one has ever mentioned to you. There is a proper fix, and it is not giving up earrings. Stay with me for that. Let me start with direction, because it explains almost everything. Here is the mechanism. Stand in front of a mirror and look at the outline of your face, from the cheekbone down to the chin. There is a line running down and inward. For every woman past a certain age, that line has softened. The cheek has settled a little, the jaw has lost some of its edge, and the whole outline reads as slightly heavier at the bottom than it did. That is not a flaw, it is bone and tissue doing what they do, but it is a direction. Downward and slightly outward. Now hang an object beside it. The eye reads the earring and the jaw together because they are inches apart and it cannot separate them. If the earring is long, thin, and straight, it draws a vertical line running downward, immediately alongside a jawline that is already reading downward. 2 parallel downward lines side by side, and the eye adds them together. The earring has extended the movement of the face. If the earring has width, or a curve, or a shape that moves outward and upward, it draws a line that crosses the jaw's direction rather than following it. Now the eye has 2 directions to reconcile, and the horizontal or upward one interrupts the downward one. The jaw stops being the only movement in that area. That is the whole principle, and it is why hoops have flattered women for 4,000 years. A hoop is a curve that goes out and comes back up. Then there is the second thing, which is light. Daylight comes from above. It always has. So the top of your face, the forehead, the top of the cheekbone, the bridge of the nose, is lit, and the underside of everything is in shadow. Under the eyes, under the cheekbone, under the jaw. An earring sitting at the level of the jaw and catching light throws some of that light upward, into the one region nothing else illuminates. It is a very small reflector, positioned exactly where a photographer would put one, which is why the material and finish of an earring matter as much as the shape. Something that catches and returns soft light is doing work. Something matte and dark is doing nothing at all. Direction and light. 5 to stop. The first is the tiny stud worn on its own. This is the small single stone or the little gold ball, 4 or 5 millimeters across, and an enormous number of women over 60 wear nothing else because studs feel appropriate, they are comfortable, and they never look like too much. The problem is that they do nothing whatsoever. They are too small to draw any line at all, so there is no direction beside the jaw and nothing interrupting it. And they are too small to reflect any meaningful light, so the underside of the face gets nothing. So the area beside your jaw is completely unoccupied, which means the only thing happening there is the jaw. You have left the stage empty and there is only one act on it. There is a second effect that is subtler. As hair goes gray, silver, or white, the whole head becomes lighter and softer in tone, and the contrast across your features drops. A tiny stud has never been a strong feature, and against lighter hair, it disappears entirely. I am not going to tell you to stop wearing studs, because a lot of women want something small and easy for every day, and that is a completely fair thing to want. The fix is size. Go up considerably. A stud that is 10 to 14 millimeters across, so about half an inch, reads as a deliberate feature rather than as a full stop, catches real light, and still involves no dangling and no weight. Pearl buttons, gold domes, a large matte disc, a flat brushed circle. Most women wearing tiny studs would look immediately better in the same shape 3 times the size, and it is the least disruptive change on this entire list. The second is the long, thin, straight drop. This is the earring that hangs down in a narrow line, a fine chain with a small stone at the end, a slim vertical bar, a linear dangle 2 or 3 inches long. They are elegant in the abstract, and they are the single most common aging earring worn by women over 60 who have made an effort. Because of everything I said about direction. A long, thin vertical hangs beside the jaw, runs parallel to it, and continues the downward line past the point where the face ends. The eye follows the earring down and then reads the entire lower face as part of that same descending movement. There is a second problem, which is about the neck. A long, straight drop ends somewhere on the neck, which means it draws attention to the neck and holds it there. If the neck is something you think about, this is the one piece of jewelry guaranteed to point at it. And a third, which is movement. Thin drops swing, and a swinging vertical beside the face keeps redrawing that downward line every time you move your head. The fix is not length, it is width and shape. If you like a drop, choose one that has some breadth to it. A teardrop, a flattened oval, a geometric shape wider than it is tall, a small cluster with actual width. Anything that gives the eye a horizontal to read alongside the vertical. And there is one specific style worth knowing. A drop that widens as it descends, narrow at the ear, wider at the bottom, reads as an upward triangle, and an upward triangle beside a softening jaw is one of the most flattering shapes available. It literally points the wrong way to the direction of the sag. The third is the heavy earring that drags the lobe. Nobody says this out loud, and it matters more than most of what does get said. Earlobes change. They lose collagen and elasticity like every other part of the skin, and they lengthen gradually over decades. That happens on its own, but it happens considerably faster if you have been wearing weight in them. A heavy earring worn most days for 30 years pulls downward continuously. The piercing hole elongates from a round hole into an oval and then into a slot. The lobe itself stretches, and in some cases the hole migrates downward towards the edge of the lobe. 2 things follow visually. A stretched lobe with a long piercing hole is itself a downward line beside the jaw, which is the exact thing we have been trying to avoid. And a heavy earring sits at an outward angle rather than lying flat against the lobe, so it hangs oddly and catches light unevenly. There is nothing to be ashamed of here. It is mechanics, not carelessness. But it is the one item on this list that is cumulative, which means it is the one worth attending to soonest. The practical fixes are all easy. But choose lighter constructions, hollow metal rather than solid, hoops rather than dense drops, resin or wood or lightweight acrylic rather than heavy stone. Anything that is surprisingly light in the hand is doing less damage than something of the same size that is heavy. Use an earring back that supports rather than just secures. Large flat disc backs, sometimes sold as lobe supports or earring lifts, spread the weight over more of the lobe and stop a heavy earring from tipping forward. They cost a few pounds and they make a visible difference immediately. And if a hole has already elongated, a jeweler can often fit a slightly higher post, or you can simply choose earrings with a broad flat back that sits against the whole lobe. None of this requires giving up earrings, and none of it is expensive. Which brings me to the fourth, and this is the one I promised. The fourth is the clip-on that pinches. And I want to be careful and direct about this, because it is the item on the list with the most feeling attached to it. A great many women over 60 have moved to clip-ons, and almost always for one of two reasons. Either the piercing holes have closed, stretched, or become sore, or the lobes have become sensitive, and pierced earrings simply are not comfortable anymore. That is an entirely ordinary thing to happen, and nobody ever mentions it, which means a lot of women assume it has only happened to them. The problem is that most clip-ons are still designed the way they were designed in 1960. A hinged lever that grips by pressure, and pressure is the only thing holding it on. Which means to stay on at all, it has to grip hard. 3 consequences. It hurts, and by mid-evening most women have quietly taken them off and put them in a handbag, so the earrings that were meant to complete the outfit have been absent for half the occasion. It visibly compresses the lobe, so the ear is pinched and the earring sits at an angle. And because they are gripping so hard, they are almost always heavy or bulky enough to need that grip, so they cause exactly the dragging problem from the last item. Now the fix, and this is the useful bit, because there are 3, and hardly anybody knows about them. The first is a screw back or comfort clip. Modern clip-ons with a small screw or an adjustable padded pad let you set the tension yourself, so you tighten to just enough rather than to maximum. They are widely available and they cost the same as ordinary clips. The second is a magnetic earring. 2 small magnets, one on each side of the lobe. No pressure at all, no piercing needed, no pinching. They only work with reasonably light designs, which is a virtue rather than a limitation. And the third, which is the one most women have never considered, have the piercings redone. If a hole has closed over, it can usually be re-pierced very simply, and a good piercer will place it slightly differently to avoid old scar tissue. Women assume this is not available to them at 68. It absolutely is. It takes 10 minutes, and it reopens the entire category. There is no reason to spend the rest of your life in earrings that hurt. That is the whole point of this section. The fifth is the fully matched set. The earrings, the necklace, and often the bracelet, all in the same design, the same stones, the same finish. Very often bought as a boxed set, very often a gift. Everything about it is well-intentioned, and it is one of the most reliably dating things a woman can wear. Here is why. A matched set is a solved puzzle. Every decision has already been made by a manufacturer for a generic wearer, and worn together the pieces announce that they arrive together. And the eye reads that as an absence of choice. A woman wearing a matched parure looks like she is wearing a product. A woman wearing a gold hoop, a different pendant she has had for years, and a watch she likes, looks like she has taste. That impression has nothing to do with the quality or cost of either arrangement. There is a second effect. A match set repeats the same visual note 3 times on one body, which means 3 separate points of identical interest, at the ears, at the chest, at the wrist. The eye bounces between them rather than settling on your face, and there is a period issue. Matched sets were the standard way jewelry was sold and worn from roughly the 1950s to the 1980s, and they have never really come back. So wearing one places you in the same way a banana comb or a frosted nail places you. The fix costs nothing and takes 10 seconds. Break the set. Wear the earrings from it with a different necklace. Wear the necklace with plain gold hoops. Keep the bracelet for another day. You lose nothing, You own exactly the same pieces, and the arrangement immediately reads as chosen rather than as issued. That is one of the highest value 10-second changes in this entire series. Now, the three that flatter almost every face over 60. The first is the medium hoop, and if you buy one pair after this video, make it this. A hoop between about 2 and 4 centimeters across, so roughly an inch to an inch and a half, in warm gold, worn every day. It does everything the mechanism asks for. The shape is a curve that travels outward and returns upward, which crosses the downward direction of the jaw rather than following it. It has width, so it interrupts. It sits at cheek and jaw level rather than hanging past the face onto the neck. And a polished or lightly brushed metal circle catches light from several angles at once and throws it upward onto the underside of the cheekbone. Warm gold specifically. A warm metal beside the face reflects warmth onto skin that has cooled, exactly as a warm eyeglass frame does. If your skin genuinely suits silver, silver works, but gold flatters more older complexions than silver does, and rose gold flatters more still. Size matters, so here is the guide. The hoop should be wide enough to be clearly visible from the front, and not so large that the bottom of it drops below your jawline, somewhere between the width of your thumb and the width of 2 fingers, and hollow rather than solid, so it is light in the ear. A good hollow gold hoop weighs almost nothing and can be worn every day for years without doing any of the damage described earlier. The second is the wide button or dome. This is the large stud done properly, a flat or gently domed disc, 10 to 15 millimeters across, sitting flush against the lobe. It is the reflector. A broad, shallow curve in gold, pearl, or mother of pearl catches ambient light across its whole surface and returns it softly upward. Not a glint, a glow. That is exactly the quality of light that flatters older skin, and it is doing it from the ideal position. It also has width without length, which means it interrupts the jaw's direction without adding any downward line at all. And there is no dangle, so no weight, no swing, and no dragging. A large pearl button is one of the most quietly flattering earrings a woman over 60 can wear, and it costs very little. A matte or brushed gold dome does the same job with a more modern feel. This is your everyday alternative if hoops are not your thing. The third is the short, wide drop, wider than it is long, for occasions or for anybody who wants a bit more presence. The specification is the important part. The earring should be broader than it is tall, and it should end at or above the jawline. A flattened teardrop, an oval lying on its side, a small fan, a geometric shape with horizontal emphasis, a short cluster with real width. What that gives you is a strong horizontal beside the jaw. A horizontal is the direct opposite of the direction the face is moving in, which is why a wide, short earring reads as lifting, where a long, thin one reads as dragging. Keep the surface matte, brushed, or softly polished rather than heavily faceted. Hard sparkle is glare, and glare draws inspection. A soft luster is a light source, and a light source flatters, and this is where a colored stone earns its place. Turquoise, coral, garnet, jade, amber, malachite. A color beside the face reflects that color onto the skin in exactly the way a blouse color does, and a warm or a jewel tone at jaw height does more for a complexion than any colorless stone. Now the jaw rule, because I promised it and because it settles every length question you will ever have. Here it is. Your earring should end at or above your jawline, never below it. Find the line. Put a finger on the bottom of your ear, then run it forward along the underside of your jaw to your chin. That is the boundary. Anything that ends above that line sits inside the frame of your face. The eye reads the earring and the face as one composition, and the earring is decorating the face. Anything that hangs below it has left the face and arrived on your neck. The eye now travels down past your jaw, which means it reads the jaw on the way, and then it lands somewhere on the neck and stops. Every single thing you would rather it did not linger on is on that path. This one rule eliminates most of the bad options automatically. long chains, chandeliers, linear bars, anything shoulder dusting. And it is a 4-second check in a mirror before you leave the house. There is one refinement worth knowing. If your face is longer than it is wide, keep everything shorter and wider still, because you are trying to add horizontal rather than vertical. If your face is rounder, you have slightly more room for a small amount of length, and a short drop that widens downward will work well. But the boundary holds either way. At the jaw or above it. And one last small thing that costs nothing. And if you wear your hair up or back, your earrings are fully visible and can be larger. If you wear your hair down and it covers your ears, a small earring is invisible, and a large one is half hidden and reads as a glint rather than a shape. On a hair down day, go bigger or go bright, or the earring is not participating at all. So let me bring all of it together. An earring is the closest object you own to the part of your face you think about most, and it does two things. It draws a line beside your jaw, which either follows the direction the face is softening in or crosses it, and it throws light upward into the underside of the face, which is the one area daylight never reaches. The 5 to stop. The tiny stud worn alone, which is too small to draw a line or catch light, so the jaw is the only thing happening beside your face. Go up to 10 or 14 millimeters. The long, thin, straight drop, which hangs parallel to the jaw and extends its downward movement onto your neck. Choose width instead, and best of all, a shape that widens as it descends. The heavy earring that drags the lobe, which is the one cumulative item on this list, lighter constructions, hollow metal, and large, flat, supportive backs. The clip-on that pinches, which comes off by mid-evening and compresses the lobe, screwbacks, magnetic pairs, or simply having the piercings redone, which is available to you and takes 10 minutes. And the fully matched set, which reads as a product rather than a choice, break it up and wear the pieces separately, which costs nothing at all. The 3 that work. The medium warm gold hoop, hollow and light, worn every day. The wide button or dome, 10 to 15 millimeters, flat against the lobe, which is a soft reflector in the ideal position. And the short wide drop, broader than it is tall, ending at or above the jaw, in a soft luster and preferably a warm-colored stone. And the jaw rule. At the jawline or above it, never below. 4 seconds in a mirror, and it settles the question permanently. Now the last thing. Go and tip out your earring box tonight and sort it into 2 piles. Things that end above your jaw and things that do not. Then look at the first pile and ask which of them you chose. I suspect the honest answer for a lot of you is very few. Most of what is in that box arrived as a gift, or was bought for an event, or came in a set, or has simply been there since the 90s. And that is worth noticing. Because of everything you own, this is the object with the shortest distance to your face and the largest effect for the money. A pair of good hollow gold hoops costs less than a jar of decent face cream and will do more for how your face reads than the cream will every day for the next 10 years. Not because there is anything wrong with the cream, because nobody ever told you that the thing hanging an inch from your jaw was doing anything at all. So tell me in the comments how many pairs came out of that box that you did not choose, because I think the number is going to surprise some of you. And tell me honestly whether you have got a matched set sitting in there, because I suspect a great many of you have, and it was a gift, and you feel obliged to wear it as a set. You are allowed to break it up. The person who gave it to you wanted you to look wonderful, not to wear a product. Subscribe if this was useful, because I make these for women who would rather understand the reason than be handed the box. I will see you in the next one.